let's talk about UPCAT because I think that's one of the things that have really changed me in the past few months. UPCAT, or at least not taking the UPCAT, is what I now deem to be the second greatest regret I've had or have in my life. Is it had or have? Anyways, I'm actually looking back at the tweets that I were posting the night or the morning the UPCAT released the results. Yeah, the results were released for UPCAT. I think it was April 18th or the 19th of this year. So for a little bit of context, here's what happened. There was a point in grade 11 where my parents were actually urging me to set things laid out for college because, you know, in a year or so I would be in college. And initially the plan I had in mind was I would be studying abroad, which is a very idealistic expectation. Specifically Japan. I was actually looking into getting into universities or applying for a university such as the University of Tokyo and Akihabara Institute of Technology, I believe. But realistically speaking, we just didn't have enough funds, and even if I do get the scholarship and financial aid, because I was really looking into it, I was digging through tons of websites and guides on how to apply and obtain those, let's say, help, because I actually had no idea where to start. And then at some point I just realized that it wasn't just feasible, not because of I didn't want it enough, even though in a sense I didn't. It's simply because it just didn't make sense to expend this much effort and funds this early. And I don't think my parents support me. And my dad says he does, but I don't think, or at least deep within him, I do believe he wants me to stay here in this country because abroad, man, it's abroad. Okay, Japan, gone. Next, what's next? I had the list of universities I had in mind, and one of them at the top being De La Salle. And that is actually one of the reasons why I enrolled in La Salle in Negros Occidental, because I thought that, oh, if you're coming from a La Salle school and you're moving into La Salle, you're like put into a more advantageous position. Like in terms of application, the people admitting you or the admission department will give you far better consideration because you were already part or originally coming from a La Salle school or a branch. So I thought, okay, it's not like there are any better schools in Negros. I think there are other alternatives, but when you say in Bacolod or my home, yeah, let's just say hometown at this point, La Salle is the best you've got, at least in terms of rankings. So La Salle it is. I'm gonna study in La Salle in senior high and then move back to Manila. And other universities I had in mind were Ateneo and Mapua. But for Ateneo, I didn't really give a shit for some reason. I didn't even look into the requirements and all that. I just knew I wanted to because I keep saying Ateneo all the time. So I was more in it for the name per se. And in terms of Mapua, it's one of the top for ComSci, I believe. And a lot of my Don Bosco friends are actually going to Mapua and they're actually studying there right now. And that's also the same thing with La Salle. A lot of my Don Bosco friend groups are studying in La Salle right now. So I do have that feeling of missing out to some extent. Because they're there. My friend groups are there. And I'm not only taken away from them during my move to Negros Occidental. I'm gonna make a story time out video on that actually. So my original plan, okay, I'm gonna go away and then go back to them because that was the idea. It's like, oh, the return of Homer, and that's what I thought it was going to be like, you know. But life isn't about like that. So, you know, I'm looking into these application forms, like the necessary documents and all of that stuff. I think I had like a month to prepare, and then at some point in grade 11, here's the main part of the video. My parents brought up the idea of me applying for UP. Okay, let me get this clear. And deep within me, the most intuitive answer, or not really intuitive, but the most natural answer that immediately came into my mind was no. Like, no. For three reasons, which I will probably make up at the spot. I'm actually thinking of the first reason. The first reason is that I thought that as, let's say, a more on the fortunate side of the society, I think you know what I'm trying to say. I just thought that it would be unfair to some sense. This is a common issue. This is not new. The bourgeois, I just say bourgeois because that's what people call them, or us rather. It's the fortunate have no right to stay in UP, and that's not something I'm gonna talk about in this video because that's a completely different matter. But yeah, that's part of it. I just felt like I'm going to be out of place, and not in terms of, I shouldn't really give a shit. I don't really care. I earned my spot in UP if ever I did in some other universe. And yeah, I guess I just felt bad. Let's just call it that. And secondly, I have a sense of inferiority complex, okay? It's just like I didn't want to take a shot. I have a higher chance of missing. I thought that me passing the UPCAT was virtually close to impossible. Okay, I know it's just self-confidence type of thing. I didn't really have much confidence back then in grade 11, so I thought, okay, well, why even consider doing that when I'm probably gonna fail anyways? And then third, it's UP, and I don't know anyone who is going to UP. I do know now, like a lot of people from the Moscow apparently have gone to UP. Not really a lot, but a handful. But it was either, if I'm going back to Manila, LaSalle. Like, that was just the fixed mindset I had. It was pretty restricting looking back now, and I didn't really think about funds. Yes, that is probably the part where I messed up the most, because I was only thinking that, hey, we have money to spend, therefore I'm gonna be good in that regard because I have my parents to support me financially. And I know this is a pretty entitled thing to say. I know, I admitted that is actually one of the reasons why I didn't want to go to UP, because it's a principle thing, alright? It's another one of those Homer stuff. I just feel bad for even, I'm not that type of person to let's just say share a monthly income someday if I do get a job. It's just not my thing to flex my material stuff and all that. I don't think I don't need to dive deep into those things. So how is it a regret? The conversation was like, hey, UPCAT, what do you think? More or less, nah, not for me. Like, that was it. I think a lot of stuff was up at the time. Like, I was really dealing with other aspects of my life. It was pretty tough at the time. Not as tough as my pandemic days, but there was definitely much shit to deal with, and I wouldn't want to make things more difficult and heavier for me and stress myself out for the apparently one of the hardest entrance exams. Yeah, it is. I actually think it is in the Philippines. So not taking UP, I'm gonna cut this here because it's similar. I'm gonna cut this here because I'm gonna record another video which is related to this video, but they can stand on their own. Okay, this is a story time video. Okay, that one time I said no to UP. Like, I don't know, but why?